time now for the World Brief and a review of some headlines from today's newspapers. But first, let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, US President Donald Trump says that he'll decide if America will get directly involved in the conflict between Iran and Israel in 2 weeks. Now, it's a move that for now at least closes the door to further escalation and opens the window to diplomacy. All of this while the fighting between Israel and Iran enters its 7th consecutive day. Now, a week after Israel started its latest exchange of hostilities, Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged, but not destroyed completely. Now, Israel says that it targeted Iran's Arak nuclear reactor and a nuclear weapons development site in Nanats overnight. It said that it would increase the intensity of attacks after an Iranian missile directly hit a hospital in the southern part of the country. Now, Iran said that it was aiming for a nearby military complex. Now, as I said, it's been a week since this fighting has been going on. But let's not forget the conflict between Israel and Iran follows decades of hostility between the two arch foes. Now, until 1979, that Islamic Revolution, Iran and Israel were close allies with extensive economic and military ties. It was Iran's revolution, which you can see pictures of now, that brought into power a radical Shia Muslim regime whose ideology was deeply anti-Western and anti-Israel. Now, the regime cut off relations with Israel through its support behind Palestinians and became a chief sponsor of anti-Israel armed groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen. Now, Israel, with backing from the United States and other allies, has fostered sanctions against Iran, targeted Iran's nuclear program, and has carried out years of covert operations against Iran as part of a long so-called shadow war. It's also important to note that Israel is widely believed to also have nuclear weapons, though the country has neither acknowledged nor denied having a nuclear arsenal. Now, Israeli strikes have killed at least 639 people in Iran during the week-long conflict. Israel says that its death toll has remained at 24. To Asia now, where Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatра's coalition government is on the brink of collapse. That's after a phone call between her and former Cambodian leader Hun Sen about a border dispute was leaked. Now, the leak provoked public anger and prompted a key coalition partner of the 38-year-old party to quit. During the call, she addressed Hun Sen, the Cambodian leader, who is also a family friend of hers and a senior politician in the Southeast Asian region, as uncle. And she also promised to take care of his needs and told him not to listen to an outspoken Thai military commander. It's important to note that the military in Thailand is highly respected. Now, the Prime Minister admitted that she was the one on the phone call, and she did make a public apology, but her political strength continues to crumble. Now, the second largest party in her ruling coalition, they quit on Wednesday, which dealt a major blow to her party's position in parliament. Her coalition now holds a very slim majority, which will be lost if more partners decide to leave. Just 3 months ago, Shinawatra survived a no-confidence vote. And finally, let me end today's World Brief in Italy, where protests have broken out against Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who plans to marry his fiancée Lauren Sanchez in Venice next week. Now, local residents in Venice held signs saying no space for Bezos. They say the famous city of Venice is overrun by tourists, be they billionaires or otherwise. Venice's 2-square-mile main island and historic centre, which is home to about 50,000 people, receives 20 million visitors yearly, mostly people who are just visiting for the day from cruise ships or other cities. While tourism is central to Venice's economy and cultural identity, critics say that it has displaced residents and damaged historic sites. Venetians' wariness comes as demonstrators across southern Europe rallied over the weekend against mass tourism. So we're seeing this on the Spanish island of Mallorca in Spain and in other Spanish cities such as Barcelona, where tourists were spritzed with water guns, as well as, of course, in Venice, as well as Lisbon, which is the Portuguese capital. So you're seeing a lot of tourism wariness, wedding wariness in these European cities. Those are your World Brief stories. Love to hear your thoughts for you.
I mean, their concerns are very apt when you look at it. But tourism is now becoming a problem. You know, they can't actually get places to live in their own cities. But I think it's just a targeted one at Bezos. I mean, Bezos is just one of many tourists that will come and probably have wedding. But Maybe because it's going to be a high-profile one and it's going to have high-profile guests and all of that. But they'll settle it out. I mean, Bezos will get a very good place for his wedding. He's a billionaire already. But for Israel, yes, you were correct. Israel and Iran used to be partners at some point in the 70s. Why? Because the American puppet, the Shah, was leader of Iran. Once the Iranian Revolution happened, then the Americans didn't like it. And in fact, let's dial back to the 50s. Mossadegh, his only crime was to go against the Shah and say we should nationalize Iranian oil. That's why the Americans kicked him out. CIA kicked him out. Because it's always about the Americans, and that's the very sad thing. And I'm going to raise some issues this morning. Taco Trump, has now said that we're going to wait for another 2 weeks. When all of this started, he said he was trying to make peace among both of them. So you can see he's indecisive, and that's why I think Viva used a very colorful word for him. He's very colorful with his decision making, yes. You can see what he's trying to do. So in those 2 weeks we're going to wait for, the Israeli will continue to pound and probably kill
with America's support, yes.
With America's support, and probably kill the Ayatollah then, because Israel can't. The minister in Israel here said, oh, we got to kill the Ayatollah. Is that it? Israel is now saying because their hospital was struck, oh, we have to retaliate. What about the over 600 people you've killed in Iran already? And the nuclear sites that you've been bombing, the centrifuges you've been bombing? And for Israel now telling us that, oh, yes, we're brand new. You can't own nuclear weapons. Can we ask Israel about the Vela incident in the 70s? Can we ask Israel how the apartheid government in South Africa was supplying them with uraniums, selling them the yellow oxide? Can we ask Israel about somebody that defected out of the Israeli uranium enrichment program that made revelations? Can Israel tell us what is going on in the Damir plants and the enrichment? Can they react to reports that they have about 70 to 200 warheads? Because Israel, when you ask them about their nuclear weapon, do you know what they say? They say, we don't ask, we don't tell. But at the same time, they will hint and say, oh, we probably have something that the world does not know we have. So they can go away with it. Nobody puts them on the non-proliferation treaty. It's none of their business, and they can continue with this. And you see, this is the inequity I'm speaking against. I'm not saying Iran is perfect. Iran is as complicit. They have a lot of problems. I don't support everything the Ayatollah does. But I'm just talking about fairness in the world. And that's what we do not see. And that's the base of all the problem. And for the bombardment they are now doing because of nuclear programs, and they said they might enrich uranium to a point where they might have nuclear heads. I'm sure Rosso has replied them, the IAEA chief has replied them by saying, when we went in there, we didn't see that they have any facility enough to be able to cause that nuclear chemistry we're now talking about. So what it means invariably is that Netanyahu has always lied since the early 2000s that in 2 weeks they can enrich uranium to the point where they can have nuclear heads. He said that a couple of weeks ago. It's all a lie because the independent regulatory body for that, IAEA, has spoken against that. And why do nations want to keep these nuclear heads? Because they are afraid of aggression from other nations like Israel. That's why Ukraine is regretting today that why did they go ahead and, send all of the nuclear weapons and demobilize and send it to Russia? If Ukraine had nuclear weapons, do you think Russia will be able to attack them? So this is the mass hypocrisy we see in the world. It's the hypocrisy I'm speaking about. Yes. I'm not saying Iran is a saint.
Great. Thank you.
I'm also concerned about the hypocrisy of the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, because they seem to be flip-flopping as well. Now, of course, it must be noted that the agency is made up of member states in a similar way to the United Nations. But the member states voted in the majority to say that Iran is non-compliant with nuclear regulations. Right. Those who opposed that vote were Russia, China, and Burkina Faso. Now, this adds a layer of complexity because yesterday we saw that Vladimir Putin was in conversation with his Iranian counterpart and almost showed a solidarity with Iran. There have been reports of aircrafts that have left China and their manifestos recorded that they were supposed to be heading to Europe, but they disappeared over Iranian airspace. So the mobilization that is happening around this is dangerous. And I always maintain that it doesn't matter which side you're on. The escalation that we are seeing is absolutely terrifying. Now, what is another thing that is terrifying? Excuse me, it's still me and this cold. We're getting there. I'm getting better. What is another thing that's terrifying? It's the rhetoric. The Americans are saying there's threats of assassination on our president. We're hearing, oh, we'll kill Khamenei. I mean, what kind of rhetoric is this? Yeah. Where is the world going? I remember a time where in the world we would speak about how we're going to drag leaders to the Hague, or how they're going to pay for war crimes, how they're going to be tried in the courts. It was never about we're going to go and eliminate this leader. And yes, some might argue that, well, it's been happening under the cover of other movements for a long time, especially when you look at some of the African leaders who've been taken out, progressive African leaders. I hear they're opening up the cold case of Lumumba's assassination and so forth. However, for this to be done in broad daylight, openly on social media, where you're seeing leaders and their people threatening to kill and assassinate one another.
Israeli minister.
You have a minister. You have the president, but you also have the Ayatollah, saying they can get Donald Trump. It's a mess on all sides. Sure. And just to conclude my thoughts on Venice. Over-tourism, I think, is a real issue, It's a real issue. I mean, I always refer to Cape Town. I know what Cape Town is like when it's peak season. It is horrible. There's more litter. You can't access anything. You can't move about. You can't get anything done. And the people in Venice are saying that, but we're not feeling the trickle-down effects of this money that comes in with all this tourism and these huge events. So I think that's the conversation really, is how can they remodel this town of beautiful, serene place called Venice to ensure that the residents also feel the value of the fact that Venice is one of the most beautiful places on earth.
These tourists can come to Lagos. So not just in December. Not just in December. They can come.
But we're going to start talking about over-tourism in Lagos in December as well, because you can't move. You can't get anywhere.
More than welcome.
With the traffic.
Exactly. Let's move on to newspaper headlines. Let's start, of course, with This Day this morning. Now, This Day does lead with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu saying that Kaduna has transformed from a toxic and insecure state to a hub of peace and development under Governor Uba Sani. Now, the president also inaugurated 100 compressed natural gas mass transit buses in the state, while commissioning the Institute of Vocational Training and Skills Development, a 300-bed hospital, more than 50 kilometers of new roads, and the Vocational and Skills Training Center in Tujumbiri, among other legacy projects executed by Senator and Governor Uba Sani. Now, President Bola Tinubu on Thursday also said that he was proud to be associated with Governor Uba Sani of Kaduna State, especially for his ability to restore peace and stability, as he inherited, a state from former Governor Nasir El-Rufai, as we were discussing. And it was during his tenure that the state did witness security challenges, especially amongst different ethnic groups. Now, This Day also reports on stocks rallying after Zenith Bank PLC's founder and chairman, Mr. Jim Ovia, and the group managing director and CEO, Dr. Adora Umoji, have significantly increased their stake in the bank, acquiring shares worth over 3.3 billion naira between the 10th and 18th of June this year. Now, the New Telegraph reports that the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has reached an understanding with Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger to collaborate on addressing terrorism and violent extremism in the region. Now, the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Dr. Omar Aliou Touré, disclosed this also on Thursday during the opening of the 94th Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers in Abuja. The Daily Sun, it reports that the Nigerian government has finalized arrangements for the emergency evacuation of stranded Nigerians in Israel and Iran, as, of course, this crisis between the two nations continues to escalate with incessant bombings. The Leadership newspaper reports that 36 state governors have agreed to work closely with the federal government to harmonize levies, eliminate illegal checkpoints, and enhance the free flow of goods across states as part of efforts to address food security issues across the country. This comes as the chairman of the APC's Governors Forum and Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, stated that both the Progressive Governors Forum and the Nigeria Governors Forum agreed to the urgent need to adopt the long-standing proposal for a state-level security system to support federal initiatives. And again, The Guardian, it does stay with World Sickle Cell Day, which was on June 19th. And we are seeing in this article that experts are warning that 50 million Nigerians live with sickle cell anemia and warn against stigma. Now, Adekunle Gold, who is a survivor of the disease itself, has also been open about his journey with sickle cell anemia. He has offered healthcare to 1,000 warriors. Warriors are people with sickle cell. Now, though sickle cell is not and should not be treated as a death sentence, the National Orientation Agency has called on Nigerians to take personal responsibility by knowing their genotype before making marital decisions. Also in Oyo State, the government, in collaboration with the Sheyi Farah Foundation, has urged Nigerians to prioritize knowing their genotype as well as the first line of defense in the fight against sickle cell disease. So let us all find out what our genotypes are, find out what our blood groups are.
Very apt. I mean, if we still get a chance to speak, I'm really very excited that Zenith Bank is now putting a big rally back. By their top officials now buying the shares, because a lot happened in the market. And that's why, yesterday I was saying the other side of the story. Yes, you can say, yeah, it's good, CBN is back to orthodoxy, it's good, they whip the banks in line, with this forbearance talk and all of that. And most of the banks, I said they will come out of forbearance. First Bank Co, I think they said we're going to come out of forbearance in December and all of that. But also the harmful effect on the market. You do not want anything that will distort the rhythm of the market, at a point in time. So I'm happy that there's a share rally back. Zenith Bank CEO has invested more in the bank. So let's see how all of this pans out in the coming days.
Very quickly, ECOWAS agreeing to collaborate with Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger on insecurity issues, I think is a very important development, and is what we've been advocating for this whole time, is that, yes, there are differences, there are issues, there are irregularities, but let the people not be the ones to suffer. I saw a report yesterday that said Catherine Russell, who's the executive director of UNICEF, was actually in Burkina Faso, and he was congratulating that government because they've been able to reopen schools in a number of areas that had been plagued by insecurity before. So there's a lot to collaborate on, a lot to learn from one another, especially because we now know that with the spate of insecurity and terrorism, this wave of terrorism, it's moving coastal. That's the agenda behind it. So if we aren't able to come together as a bloc, then that threat becomes heightened. So for me, I think it's a very positive development. Yes, let those countries iron out their governance issues, very important. However, in the meantime, let the people not be the ones to suffer for all that that is transpiring in the corridors of power. Adefemi Akinsanya, thank you so much.